Mr. Welch for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Rice, if in fact the evidence that suggests Prime Minister Maliki is in fact protecting corrupt officials exists, do you believe that the American taxpayers have a right to know, yes or no, on that?
I believe very strongly that, first of all, the United States government has a right to know, and certainly the American taxpayers will have a right to know. But, Congressman, I think we owe it to everyone to do thorough investigations, not to respond to allocations, not to respond to uncorroborated evidence or uncorroborated statements. And I'm going to hold to that, because not only is it potentially damaging to relationships that we are very dependent on in terms of the allegations that are uncorroborated, but it's wrong.
So
it's simply not right to sit in an open session and do that.
If the American people have a right to know, and you know what they have a right to know, when will you tell us what they want to know?
What the American people need to be assured of is that if there is corruption, the United States is, in fact, dedicated to rooting it out. I want to just emphasize that let's not take Iraq in isolation. Corruption is not just a pervasive. If you'll pardon to let me just finish my point.
The reason I want to
Secretary Rice, please.
All right.
We only have limited time.
Mr. Chairman, may I have an opportunity, though, to finish my answers?
My question is only about Iraq. We have very limited time, Madam Secretary, and that's the reason for my interruption. Let me ask you on this. On your point that you'll follow up and that you want to do thorough investigations, we received information about this order Chairman Waxman asked about, that the Commission on Public Integrity, which is a credible group, can't refer for criminal prosecution the Iraqi council ministers or any current or former ministers without the Prime Minister's permission. My question to you is this. That obviously interferes with Iraq moving forward, with us moving forward. Will you ask the President of the United States to repudiate that blanket grant of immunity that is contained in that order after this hearing is over?
First of all, if I may complete the sentence, which is that we need to understand that in that Iraq in context, that corruption is yes a pervasive issue in Iraq. It is a pervasive issue with many countries around the world, and we have been dedicated to rooting it out around the world. Secondly, there are other boards and other institutions in Iraq that are involved in investigating corruption, like the Board of Supreme Audit and the Inspectors General. My point to the Chairman is that the United States would expect and would indeed say to the Iraqi government that it expects that no official would be immune from investigation or prosecution for corruption.
That wasn't my question. My question is, if this order that gives blanket authority to the Prime Minister to block any prosecution stands and exists, will you ask the President, in furtherance of the need of the American taxpayer and the American soldier to know about corruption, will you ask the President to demand that the Prime Minister repudiate and rescind this order?
What we have said, and I will repeat, the United States will not support a policy that would prevent the investigation or the bringing to justice of any official in Iraq who commits.
Do you believe that secret order does interfere with the full and complete investigation? That's a yes or no.
There are other boards that investigate corruption, including the Inspector General. I will say,
will the gentleman yield to me?
Congressman Welch,
yes,
that I think it's important that we talk to the Iraqi government and that we repeat precisely what I've said. We will not tolerate a situation, we would not support a situation in which anyone is immune from corruption.
I will yield to the Chair, but it sounds like we will tolerate, or the President will tolerate, a secrecy, a blanket secrecy on investigations.
That testimony seems to be that you think the Iraqi government can deal with because the Council of Public Integrity, but the man who was the head of it was driven out of Iraq. He had 30 people who worked for him killed. He told us that there's no one allowed to investigate corruption in Iraq, and we have this order from al-Maliki himself saying that unless he personally approves, no one may be investigated. You said you know of people in the Iraqi government who care about corruption. Is Prime Minister Maliki one of the people that cares about corruption in the Iraqi government?
Prime Minister Maliki has made the fighting of corruption one of the most important elements of his program. But I will repeat again, Mr. Chairman, the United States of America does not support any policy that would make immune from investigation or prosecution any member of the Iraqi government, no matter how high.
Mr.
Limited time. Madam Secretary, the Independent Commission on Security Forces, chaired by General Jones, you're familiar with him. Yes. He's a credible person. He found sectarianism and corruption are pervasive in Iraq. And there's a State Department report on this topic that Chairman Waxman asked for. It was unclassified until he asked for it, and it became classified. But according to press reports, that report, State Department report, said that Mr. Jabr, the Minister of Interior then, at that time, that ministry was likened to a criminal mob. That's according to press reports of the State Department investigation. Is that report true or is it false?
Congressman, at the time of the Ministry of Interior under that leadership, we had serious concerns about the sectarian nature of that ministry. We had serious concerns about corruption in that ministry. We had serious concerns about violence that might have been emanating from that ministry. It was one of the most important efforts that we undertook with the Iraqi government to try and change the nature of that ministry. It is absolutely the case that there is much, much more work to be done. The Ministry of Interior is still a real challenge. But yes, we were very concerned about the nature of that ministry.
Has expired.